Welcome to Worldly Wanders, the channel that takes you on a journey around the world. Get ready to explore new cultures, destinations, and experiences. Today we'll be exploring the topic of Russia's geography and how it affects the country's economy and political decisions. Russia is an enormous country that spans 5,000 miles across and 2,000 miles vertically. It crosses 11 time zones and borders everywhere from Norway to North Korea. However, Russia has a problem. Despite its vast size, its geography is flawed. This can explain why the average Russian living at the same latitude as Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and Canada makes only $7,500 per year. The majority of Russians live in Europe, with 3/4 of the country's population residing in the western quarter of the country. As a country with a fairly centralized power system, many of its decisions are made to protect the country's core in and around Moscow. The country's lack of natural geographic protection makes it vulnerable to invasion. In contrast, the success of certain countries over others depends on how well their geography protects them. For example, the US benefited hugely from being an ocean away from every large military power. The only real armed forces that could threaten the US in its infancy were in Europe and Asia. This meant that any invasion would require transoceanic supply lines, which are hugely expensive and logistically difficult, thereby weakening an invading army. France also benefits from its geography. Its northwestern border is protected by the English Channel, its western border by the Atlantic Ocean, its southern border by the Pyrenees Mountains and Mediterranean Ocean, its southeastern border by the Alps Mountains, and its northeastern border by the Rhine River. However, the eastern half of its northern border is largely unprotected, a flaw that Germany exploited in both World War I and World War II by invading through Belgium and Luxembourg. Russia's first territorial expansion since it first became a unified East Slavic state in 882 was entirely a quest for power. But over time, this growth for glory transformed into an effort to protect the very core of the country. Russia was unprotected and vulnerable, with no natural resource to repel an invader except for its manpower. The Grand Duchy of Moscow quickly expanded, and by the time Ivan the Terrible was crowned ruler of the Tsardom of Russia, the country had spread its borders east to the Urals, south to the Caucasus Mountains, and west to the Carpathians. With all this territory, Russia, or at least Moscow, had some serious protection. Siberia is large enough that no army could invade through and make it to Moscow. The supply lines would have to be thousands of miles long through inhospitable conditions. Not only that, but that army with a 1,000 or 2,000 mile long supply line would then have to make it over the Ural Mountains to get to Moscow. Attacking from the south or west would also take an army either across water or through mountains. By the time the 19th century rolled in, Russia had truly become an unconquerable power. Countries could and can take over portions of Russia, but there is no conceivable way that a single country could fully occupy and conquer Russia. To occupy a territory of that size, a country would need an estimated 13 million trained ground troops, more than the 17 largest militaries combined. Despite its defenses, Russia has never developed economically to the same level as some of its neighbors. Its GDP per capita is around that of Mauritius, Grenada, and Turkey. And this can be at least partially attributed to geography. Historically, naval power equaled power. The two were synonymous. There was no better way for countries to project their power and grow than through colonization, and Russia was no exception. During the 17th and 18th centuries, Russia expanded its territory eastward, colonizing Siberia and gaining access to the Pacific Ocean. However, this eastward expansion brought its own set of challenges. The vast size and harsh climate of Siberia made it difficult to establish settlements and transport resources. In addition, Russia's lack of warm water ports severely limited its ability to trade with other countries and project its power beyond its borders. This lack of access to warm water ports was particularly problematic during the winter months when the Baltic and Black Seas froze over, making trade impossible. Russia's geography problem was further exacerbated by its lack of natural barriers on its western borders. Unlike other European nations such as France, Spain, and Italy, which were protected by the Pyrenees, Alps, and Mediterranean Sea, respectively, Russia was exposed and vulnerable to invasion from its western neighbors. This vulnerability was evident during World War II when Nazi Germany invaded and occupied much of western Russia. In conclusion, Russia's geography has played a significant role in shaping its history and development. The country's vast size, harsh climate, and lack of natural barriers have presented numerous challenges, particularly when it comes to projecting power beyond its borders. While Russia has attempted to overcome these challenges through colonization and strategic alliances, its geography remains a significant factor in its geopolitical situation. Thanks for joining us on our adventure around the world. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode of Worldly Wanders.